It's time to take off your clothes, enjoy clothes-free living, and join us for Naked, Nudists, and Naturists.
Welcome to Naked, Nudists, and Naturists, the show that celebrates clothes-free living for all. I'm your host, Frank Stone.
And I'm your correspondent, Lisa Monroe, and I'll be reporting on all things within the naturist community. So it's time to get naked and join us.
And enjoy clothes-free living on Naked, Nudists, and Naturists. Well, greetings and welcome into Naked, Nudists, and Naturists, episode 111. Today we have to move and groove right away. The pool is ready, hot tub is good to go, food and drink, everything is good to go. Part 2 of my interview with Gary Mussell coming up shortly. And I don't know about you, but I think I hear some music. Could it be? Yes, it is. It's time for our naturism correspondent, the very terrific Lisa Monroe. And here she is, the one and only, the completely clothes-free and fully smiling, our naturism correspondent, Lisa Monroe. Good morning, Lisa. How are you today?
I'm doing terrific. How about yourself this morning?
Not bad at all. In fact, I'm doing really well. You know, it's summertime in the USA. Southern hemisphere, it's not, but up here it is. Lots of naked time outside. I've been spending naked time at my pool mostly, even working in the yard. I have some neighbors on one side of me, but they've not moved in yet. They bought the house. They're living elsewhere. And they've been gone, so on that side of the house, naked as can be. The back of my, pool screen area, naked as can be. The other side, there is somebody moving in, so no, I had close on that side. But we'll see. I haven't met that person yet, and who knows? And we'll talk about that through one of the emails that we have from a listener. He had an interesting insight on that. But yes, doing really well. How's that for a very short answer to a long question?
I'm so impressed that you were so concise. Yes.
And yourself, you getting the clothes off and getting outside, I hope?
Oh, heck yeah. I mean, it's, it's too hot to do anything else. That's for darn sure. So this is the time when you don't go out and unless you run at 4 a.m, you're not going to get out and do much in the outside. You have to pace yourself. So time by the pool is the best thing in the world.
Yeah, I don't know when I discovered this. It was certainly in adulthood because I did not do this as a youth or, early college person. But being outside, lying down in a chair, soaking in the sun, just doing nothing but sitting there in a chair. I don't even like to read because the sun is so bright. Plus, you hold the book up, the sun won't hit your face, and there goes your tan. So you got to worry about that too.
Exactly.
I always do have the radio on or a podcast on, so I guess technically not doing nothing, but I do enjoy just sitting there, sipping iced tea and enjoying the sun as we were intended. How about you?
I certainly do too. And when I was younger, when like high school and college, high school I wasn't naked doing this, but was in a bikini, and in college too, I always take was young. I did those Harlequin romances because they were quick, and so I would get halfway through the book and turn over and read the other half of the book, and that was how I measured how long I stayed in the sun. So they came in handy because I read fast. So it was like, okay, I can do this in an hour and I'm done. So
Yeah.
that's the best way to do it. But yeah, you can't really do a whole lot especially in the glare this time of year here.
I've done that before, right on the beach or right at the pool. And it's just not the same. I think I'd rather just have that as my downtime and just soak it in and relax and, hit the pool, get cooled off and shower and get back to work. And it just seems to be better. And yeah, so far, a really great summer. I mean, it sounds like you agree.
Yeah, I agree. We've had a wonderful summer down here, and so far, and so much more to go because the heat is on and it's going to stay on for a while. So
That's right.
we might in late November go, phew, it's not so hot today, and that's the end of that.
That's right. Glenn Fry lives, right? The heat is on. I think he wrote that or sang it or something.
Yes.
All right. Well, we do have a Patreon page. Everybody knows, unless you're brand new to the show today. We get new listeners every week. That's why we keep announcing this. We used to do this show for free, a terrible business idea. We gave up paid work to do it for free, even a worse business idea. So we have a Patreon page. We ask that you give to the show to help meet expenses, and many people have done that. Who are our 2 brand new Patreon peeps today?
We have Marcel and Leon. And hey, guys, great to have you with us, and hope you enjoy being part of the Patreon group. And we just love to have the support, and we appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Marcel. Thank you, Leon. And thank you to all who contribute to the show. We might have a surprise or two down the road for our paying peeps. No announcements today, still in the semi planning stages, but you won't want to miss out if we end up going down this road. So we appreciate all of your support. How about merchandise? Lisa, you handle all of that. I've said it before. I'll just say it again. You do a whale of a job on that. You do it all by yourself. I don't know how you do it by yourself, but you do. You don't complain, at least for the most part. You don't complain or anything new in merchandise.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you something. It's a pleasure to wake up every morning and check the orders list and see that there are more orders. So I really appreciate it. You guys are really supporting not only us, but also getting that word out, because some of these things, if you wear them out, and we've had people do that, people look, but they get that idea. Maybe there is something to this. That looks like a normal person, but he's wearing a t-shirt about naturism. So who knows what we can do. But we do have two new products, and they're across all of our different logo lines. Because, we, as naturists, we don't usually have anything to carry anything in. We've got the tote bags and the weekender thing that you can put things in. But something that would be easy, especially if you're hiking or if you're just by the pool and you want to walk to and from your room or whatever, we have now they're called fanny packs. Sorry for the name, but that's what they're called. But we've got some small fanny packs, which will come in all three logos. And so they're going to be really handy. I think they have two or three little compartments in them. So, really good for putting a few things that you want to carry around resort or camping or whatever you're doing. So hopefully that'll help out some people with, not hauling things around. And then the other thing is a phone case. We have a really cute little phone wallet kind of thing. It also has some places for different things. And I think there's a compartment where you can probably slip a narrow couple of keys into if you want to. So you have those, and a place to put your phone so it's not, sitting out in the sun or knocked off if it's knocked off a table. So, or if you're going to be walking around, you can just sling it over, because both of these things can be used as either shoulder straps or crossbody. So, hopefully these are things that will help people.
Okay. So the answer to the question, where do nudists keep their phone? There are two answers. One is don't ask because you don't want to know. I'll just leave that one alone. And the
Oops.
second would be I buy a phone case from Lisa Monroe and Naked Nudists and Naturists. How about that?
That sounds good. And I just hope people find these two things, because we're trying to get things that people can use and still promote their naturism, love of naturism. So let's just hope everybody likes them.
All right. Sounds good. Coming up, Lisa, very soon. Today is Saturday, August the 2nd. So 10 days from today, the AANR, U.S. National Summer Convention, will take place August 12 to August 15. And that's at Oak Lake Trails Naturist Resort in Oklahoma. I know a lot of folks from there. I know Jennifer interacts with some people there as well. Dan Hawkins, D.H. Jonathan, who's been on the show several times. He's the president of AANR Southwest, and that's where Oak Lake Trails is, and he's a member of Oak Lake Trails, as well as Will Forrest. And so looking forward to it. We will discuss this a little more in detail, either on our Wednesday show coming up in just a few days, or next Saturday. A couple of things flying around. Don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. But it should be interesting. The National Summer Convention. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. This is a great organization, and they have a lot planned. And I think getting people together and making some decisions about this organization going forward is a really good thing. And Oak Lake Trails, from what I've seen photo wise and heard from people, is a beautiful place to be. And so it should be a really good event for Anna in general, and the organization as a whole.
Sounds good. And we also had this past Wednesday, July 30th, our very first Wednesday show. And so far, the reviews have been very good. We have no guests on the Wednesday show. We also have no time limit, no minimum, no maximum. We have an agenda. We get through it, and then we're done, whether it's 10 minutes or, 100 billion hours or somewhere in between. And I really enjoyed that. I know you did too. We've talked about it a few times since the show. But our listeners like it too, and that's always good to hear.
It certainly is, and it was fun to do and enjoyed the heck out of it, and let's just hope everybody else does because it really does give us time. We have very limited time on this show, so it gives us time to really talk in more in depth about things, and that's a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. So we'll do it again next Wednesday, and we'll just keep the ball rolling. How's that sound?
Sounds good to me.
All right. Now, on last week's show, we had 3 emails to read from Scott, a listener from Texas, a big baseball fan. And as you mentioned before, he was the first one to hit up our website when the show started
Mhm.
back in July of 23. And we only got to 2 of them because time ran out. So let's go ahead and read that third email. And Lisa Monroe, if you don't mind, why don't you read the first half or so of Scott's, actually a direct message, and then
Mhm.
I will read the second half.
Frank and Lisa, I just listened to what I hope is the first of many shows that you're both talking about naturism. I was very honored that my email provided part of your conversation. As far as TV shows supporting naturism in the 1960s and 70s, I would say they use it as comic relief, though not opposing it. In the Brady Bunch episode, Alice keeps the kids from going to the neighbors. As for MASH, in one episode, Hawkeye admits to being too shy to go to a nudist camp when Colonel Porter asked him about it.
And I'll finish up. I once saw a My Three Sons episode where the wife of one of the sons asks what skinny dipping is when Robbie, her husband, mentions doing it as a kid. I found it hard to believe a young woman in California in the late 60s wouldn't have had at least heard of it before. But that's all the TV talk for now. Love the original songs. Glad to see Tony Douglas, or Tone Dow, as he's known, isn't the only artist producing music with a naturist theme. Once again, great job with today's show to you both. And I'm guessing that was right after episode 104. I'm not
Mm,
even.
I would say so. I think so.
Yeah, so they discussed nudity, naturism all the time. Like he said, a lot of time it was comic relief. But the fact that they put it in there, I still think a lot of people were sending messages like, hey, we're free and naked and enjoying life. We can't say that directly, so we'll sneak it in this way. I could be wrong. I don't have any inside information, but it is certainly great when it's discussed, isn't it?
It certainly is. And I think television has done that over the years, and that is to slide in social mores and try to change the agenda a little bit and in a lot of different ways. And that's probably exactly what they were trying to do because it really wasn't anything. It was considered horrible back then.
Hmm.
It is now, unfortunately.
Yeah, very well said. Well, let's move on now. Thank you, Scott, for all of that. We have an email here from one of our listeners. He goes by the name Bud. If you don't mind, Lisa, can you go ahead and read that first paragraph?
I'll be happy to. I mentioned this in an email some months ago, probably last year, but the more I think about it, the more true I think it is. In order to really make a difference in how nudity is perceived in our society, I believe we each need to be willing to push the limits to some degree in how we treat nudity and react to being seen.
Going off to a naturist club for the weekend doesn't change anything in our culture if nobody knows where you're going. And for him, that's in the USA. If you do talk about where you're going, well, then that's different. However, being more casual about being seen occasionally, either partially clothed or naked, does help change the perceptions of those around you, and that can
Mm.
spread. If you don't freak out about it, they usually won't either. Of course, you have to do it carefully and get a feel for how individual people react. Take it one step at a time before you push it too far. This will make a difference, though, if we quit supporting the thought that being seen naked is a mortal sin. And if you don't mind, take over the last paragraph.
Frank, your earlier campaign, which I haven't heard anything of lately, encouraging men to go back outside without a shirt on, is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. For me, I now know that one neighbor won't freak out if they see me in the backyard, and I have gotten more and more comfortable being naked in hot springs, even when I'm the only one that is. In that case, I will ask if anyone would be offended if I get nude. If someone objects, I'll keep a pair of shorts on, but usually nobody does, and that is an extremely conservative part of the country. On several occasions, I have also asked people, carefully selected people, that I am camped near, if they would be offended if I am nude in camp, and the usual response is that it's not a problem.
All right. And then he finishes up with, thank you for your show. Keep up the good work. And he signs Bud. Well, he has some good points there. If we just go off to a naturist club or the nude beach and don't tell anybody, well, we've made no difference at all in the world. We made a difference for ourselves for that day, but we haven't pushed along the cause of naturism, have we?
No, we have not. And, we've talked about this before in that most other agendas that people have, they're able to promote it in public and, do the protesting, do the marching, do whatever they need to do to further their agenda. We can't really do that because if we get out and try to march in public without a permit on the National Black Day, we're in trouble.
Mhm.
We'll be arrested. We'll be considered, terrible people. And because of that, we don't have the avenues that a lot of people have in order to do this. So maybe in a way, what he's talking about in that doing it individually in certain instances, is a good thing. But I'm not even sure I trust that in a lot of ways because someone might say that and then all of a sudden go, oh, you know what? I really don't like this. And that would be the end of it. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, to me anyway, if you tell somebody, "Oh, I'm going to the nude beach," and they say,
Hmm.
"Well, that's nice. Have a good day," and that's the end of it,
Yeah.
I don't think that's good because that person could go off and tell
Hmm.
three other neighbors, "Oh, you won't believe what Frank's doing.
Hmm.
What a bozo, what a
Hmm.
whatever pervert. He's gonna get naked at the beach. Oh, you're kidding, Frank? I had no idea." And then you get this bad reputation for doing something that God intended for us to do, as so many people have said on our show. So maybe, okay, I'm going to the nude beach today. You want to go? You ever thought about going? Have you ever gone? And then, judge the person from there. If they start to back off, then you probably ought to back off too because they think you're a little weird. But I wouldn't run away from it. I wouldn't push it on people to the point they're uncomfortable. But certainly, maybe bring it up again. Oh, I can't wait for the weekend. I'm going to head to the nude beach again
Hmm.
to the same person, a few weeks down the road and just find a way to discuss it. You don't want to push on anybody because
Yeah.
that never works, whatever the topic is. But he's right. That's a very good point. If we don't discuss this with people, sneaking off to the naturist resort or beach doesn't do the movement any good at all. So maybe that's what we should do. What do you think?
I think he's onto something. I just think that, it's going to be we're at the in some ways at the beginning stages of this because we've seen society take a roll back. So now we have to suddenly roll society back forward again.
Mhm.
And, that's easier said than done. So all we can do is try. That's all we got.
That's right. And he talked about our little campaign here we were running for a while, shirt free men for all. And you and I have talked about that we haven't done that for a while. We've been talking about it for a few months. We just haven't gotten back to it, not intentionally leaving it out. But I am a firm believer, and I mean as firm can be. And this is to the men coming from a man. Take your blasted shirts off when you go outside. There's no need to have a shirt on. You're legally allowed to do it in this country, probably most countries, and maybe all countries. I don't know. I just talk about the USA specifically. You walk to your mailbox, have your shirt off. You walk your dog, have your shirt off. You take your trash out, have your shirt off. You work in the yard, have your shirt off. Yes, I know there are sun issues. If you're susceptible to getting burned, or if there's skin cancer in your family, obviously you don't want to be ridiculous and do something that's not too bright. But have your shirt off. I would say all of the time. And I told you, Lisa, that I recently, and I've never done this before. I wasn't even aware that I hadn't done it. It's just one of those things. I was working in my yard, and we have a deal amongst many neighbors around here. If they are out of town, we can use each other's trash cans, really big trash cans that the county provides. And I was doing a lot of yard work, and I had a lot of debris, gone out of town for a while. That tends to add up, and things grow quickly down here. So I had about 5 gazillion tons. I thought, well, I need to borrow a trash can. One of the neighbors across the street is out of town. Now I have their garage door code. We give each other our code, so in case we need to get in. So I thought, well, I'm just going to walk across the street and get the trash can. And of course, I had no shirt on because I was working outside. And I walked across the street, got in the garage, got the trash can, walked back. And after I got back, I realized I've never been out in the front like that across the street with my shirt off. Like, duh, we do a naturist nudist show, and I've always had a shirt on. So even I have to be highly cognizant of the fact outside equals no shirt, unless, again, you get burned or whatever.
I think you're right. I mean, first off, you guys have the option. You can do it. So we can't. We can wear little tiny scraps of clothing to cover things and go outside, but we can't take even those scraps off without being considered perverted.
Hmm.
So, yeah, guys, just, maybe we start it there. Get out and do that and enjoy it because you're free. I mean, you may not be totally free, but you're freer than you have been. And I think it's a great thing to do.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with it. Literally nothing wrong with it. Totally legal and accepted. And we're not dealing with the women's issue today. That's a huge thing that we're both ticked off about.
Yeah.
That women, for the most part, in most states, do have to have a top on. Really upset about that. And we'll get back to that another day. But this is from a man to men. And get your shirt off. If you can't be totally naked, we'll talk about that another time. In fact, probably on the next show. But get your shirt off for sure. And even I took a plunge I didn't know I hadn't taken before. I just never consciously thought about it. And I don't know who saw me or if anybody saw me. Neighbors all around, and they might have been looking out their window. Oh, is that Frank? Oh, well, I think everybody in the neighborhood knows. It's just a matter of they don't sneak in the backyard to get a peek. So they got to see me this time. And no harm, no foul. Didn't get arrested. The police didn't show up. No neighbors screamed at me or threw tomatoes at my window. So it's acceptable. We should do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe you just got lucky. No, I think
Eh,
people are not going to be worried about that.
no.
And if they see you 2 or 3 times, they're going to be used to it, not even think about it. So that's kind of the thing that we need to remember.
And this has been traditionally a shirt on neighborhood for men. I'm still one of I'm not really a newcomer anymore, but I'm not part of the old guard either. There have been people who lived here 30, 35 years. They walk outside, they have a shirt on. And some of us don't, some of the newer arrivals. And my next door neighbor, as I told the gentleman who wrote another email to us that we'll get on next week's show, not only does he walk around topless and do his work shirt free, but he's an elderly gentleman, substantially older than I am. Not kidding. We kid about our ages a lot, but much older than I am. He wears a blasted Speedo when he goes in his pool. Now that looks silly. Speedo, just take the Speedo off and, whatever. But we'll talk about that another time, probably on the next show. So now I have a next door neighbor who is shirt free. So it makes it even easier for me. I won't go out there and say, oh my gosh, there's Frank with no shirt. It'll be, there's Frank. Just like they would if I had a shirt on. So we'll explore that a little more on next week's show. We have another email we want to get to on next week's show. And Lisa Monroe, with that, we need to head for the hills. You'll be here at the end of the show, right?
I will be.
All right. With that in mind, go out there and have a great clothes-free half hour or so. We'll see you soon.
Okay. I'll see you in just a little while.
All right. Sounds good. The very terrific Lisa Monroe. She does it all around here. We appreciate her very much. We'll see her near the end of the show. As a reminder, we are the official podcast of the American Association for Nude Recreation. Are you a member? If so, great. If not, you can become one right now. Go to AANR.com, follow the navigation. You'll be a member within moments. How about that? Well, you're listening to Naked Nudists and Naturists, episode 111, and now part 2 of my interview with Gary Mussell.
If I could tell that to your listeners, just come out. Nudism will be far better accepted if all the people who are hiding at home actually come out and admit it to their friends. Because they may find out their friends are too and just never wanted to tell it to you.
That's what happens more often than not. And, a lot of times, if you mention it to a friend or a family member like you did, or you didn't mention it, but it came out. And if somebody says, oh, okay, now we know your secret life, Gary, you're having, these wild sexual parties every weekend. And you can say, absolutely not. That is not what naturism is about. And you can have a discussion, maybe an argument. But at some point, you're going to say, you know what? I'm out of this conversation. You believe whatever you want to believe. If you'd like to come to a club or a beach with me, you can certainly do that. But I'm not going to have these discussions and bring myself down, nor am I going to change my ways because of the joys of naturism.
I don't have that conversation very often. Usually it's they want to know more about it.
Good.
They want to know, really, I was all, tell me about what's going on. And I will explain that we're not screwing each other in the trees. And
Right.
it's a very docile, boring hobby in many ways. I always say everything you can do with a bathing suit, you do without, except that you get more vitamin D and you're more comfortable.
Yeah.
And they go, yeah, but they go, no, there's no but to it. It's just nobody cares. They can't quite fathom that nobody cares. That's the big thing. But they have to experience that to understand the non-judgment part. Nudists are very unique in the world that way, in that we are very, very non-judgable about everything.
That's right.
People being fat, too thin, too tall, too big, too little, different colors, different cultures, different sexual preferences. For some reason, the nudist is open to live and let live far more than non-nudists
Yeah.
are.
Well, do you think that's because, well, first of all, we are out there. When you're nude, you're out there, baby. You're not hiding anything. And there's not one human being alive, ever been alive, who doesn't have at least one flaw, if not a couple of million. So if you're sitting in your easy chair sipping iced tea and look at that guy, this, that, and the other thing, he could easily turn around and say, yeah, what about you and this body part or whatever? And so
I
do
always
you
tell
think that's
people
part
if you're feeling like you're overly fat, just come over and sit next to me.
of it? Yeah, that's what I mean. It's just, we get into that mode of you don't even think about it anymore. It's not as though,
Yeah,
wow,
you
he's
know,
too big or too small. You don't even think about it anymore. You just, there's Gary or there's some guy, and you move on with your day.
if you want to see what the human body evolves from childbirth to 90 to 100 years old, go to a nudist resort because you will see the entire range of ages, the entire
Yeah.
range of body types, every evolution difference there is. I also tell women, and the women who were there always confirm this, that it's the only place women go where guys will talk to you looking in your eyes.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The body, the bathing suit, back in the same bathing suit discussion, if they're bathing suit, they're looking a foot lower because they're imagining what they look like
Yeah.
underneath the bathing suit.
Yeah.
No bathing suit. You see it. Okay, curiosity solved. I'll talk to you face to face. And a lot of them are unsettled because they're not used to guys looking at them in their
I
eyes.
know.
But that's a big truism at all nudist resorts.
Oh, no, there's no doubt about it. I remember, you're speaking about how people are at the beach. My very first nude beach experience was Playa Linda in Florida. This is a
Yeah.
number of years ago, a long time ago. And I thought, okay, here I go. And I went there alone. And I thought, I don't know what I'm going to see here. It could be just a gigantic free for all and bodies everywhere doing everything. And if so, I'm going to get out of here, but I'll go check it. And I found basically what you described: people lying down on the beach, people sitting on the beach, people sleeping, a few people walking, a few people in the water. It's like any regular beach anywhere at all, except they just didn't have any clothes on, but nothing untoward going on. And once people check it out, they realize that is exactly how it works, don't they?
The other thing you don't have at a nude beach to a great extent are boom boxes.
Good point. Yeah.
People are quiet.
Yeah.
You go to a regular beach and they got their radios, they got everything else going on, they're blasting. And you go to a nude beach, it's quiet.
Yeah.
It's pensive and thoughtful. People can't quite fathom that either, but that's the other big difference.
That's very true. We are talking to Gary Mussell today. He has been involved in just about everything involving nudism, naturism. He was the president of the American Association for Nude Recreation in the West Region. He's the founding president of SCNA. We can go on forever, kind of like we sort of almost did at the beginning. But Gary, I was chatting back and forth, email or texting or whatever with Linda Weber, the current president for the American Association for Nude Recreation. And she mentioned when she first got involved with AANR, which was being on the board of directors, I believe, with AANR West, you were the president at the time. So it must make you feel really good that somebody under your tutelage has risen to be the president of the whole thing.
Well, AANR West seems to be the cradle for lots of AANR leadership.
Yeah.
Bev Price was active for 30 years and in the West, and she had all kinds of hats.
Yeah.
With that, we've had several presidents of the national organization come out of the West.
Yeah.
And officers. It seems to be a leadership breeding ground.
Yeah.
I'm very happy. Linda had the same philosophy I had, was that we had to find a way to stop the bleeding, the losing of membership, and how do we do that? and Linda has lots of new ideas, as I did, and we both ran into the same problem of club owners who really liked the status quo. They liked what they were doing. They had their own membership, and they didn't, as long as their club wasn't affected, they didn't think they had to make any changes anywhere else. And the board, I always had to do the politics of the board. I had to count heads to see how many votes I could get on my reforms. And half the time I didn't have the votes. And so I raised the idea and it just died, but at least the idea got out there. Cindy's doing a lot of them. Cindy, as a club president, though, also has the problem of protecting the clubs, and I respect that. But when I'm looking at all those direct members, by the way, most of the direct members in AANR, what I found when I was president, don't live remotely. The standard line was, oh, these guys live off in the middle of Pahrump, and they can't get to a club. There's no club nearby, and that's why they are non-club members. Well, the survey I did of all the people in the Western region was that about 60% of them lived within 15 miles of a club.
Wow.
And that was totally different than my perception and the stereotype. So then I had to ask, well, why is that? And it turns out from my research that they didn't want to be bound by the membership dues at one club only. They wanted to do other things. And if you go to Glen Eden, by the way, Glen Eden's a wonderful club. It's got all kinds of things you go on, but it's a very high membership fee. And so you feel obligated that that's where I want to go because that's where my money's going.
Yeah.
Where I get my money's worth out of it. So you don't go to the beach, you don't go bowling, you don't go to the comedy shows, other things like that SCNA does, because you're kind of stuck with where you are. Because one, they tell you, they kind of shame you into this is where you belong.
Yeah.
All the clubs do that. You're ours. And it's almost like a religion. Like, don't if you're a Catholic, don't go down the streets to Lutheran church, because you might get converted. And my thought is that, well, if your faith is that strong, then you don't have to worry about anybody listening to anybody else's religion because they're going to be curious, but they're going to stay with your thing. If you're that weak, then you probably deserve to lose a membership. And so that's kind of the same analogy I got with this. And so when I was president, Linda kind of picked up on that theme, and she's got the same problem at the national level. Lots of her board members are club officers, and they want to protect the status quo. And those that are not are stuck with where their thinking was. And so she's where I am. That she's got lots of ideas. I think they're wonderful ideas, but she's having trouble getting a majority to follow her lead on it. I'm hoping that her next term she'll get a better turnover on the board, and she'll have more friendly people, and she can act on more of her stuff. But the problem with leadership is it's much harder looking at the board, or it's much easier looking at the board saying, why don't they make changes and to be on the board, and realize that the structure itself has shackled you in. You're stuck with the bylaws and the procedures, and you can't make the changes that you really want to make, or it goes very, very slowly. AANR has this wonderful democratization amendment they put through about a dozen years ago, where people vote directly for their officers as opposed to voting on them at a convention. Well, at the convention, all the clubs would stack the place with all their members, and they'd have politics of it was big and it was raucous, and you'd have 1,000 people there, and it was a lot of fun, but it was also very political.
Yeah.
Now it's done by vote by mail,
Mhm.
and most of the members don't know who the leaders are.
Right.
So they vote for a familiar name because they've seen that name. So the same person gets voted on year after year after year. Which means the ideas don't change year after year after year.
Yeah.
And if you do want to get a change made, and you make an amendment to the bylaws, it goes on the ballot, and then it doesn't get into effect for another year. So you've got really a year of getting it onto the ballot, and then a year after before it takes effect. By that time, the whole reason for it may have changed the society, and now you got to change it again.
Yeah.
So you're always playing catch up. So Linda's problem and AANR's problem is their structure.
Yeah.
And I'm a radical on that. But of course, nobody wants to radically change how it's organized, even though society kind of is doing it for them. So I have great fear about the long-term longevity of the organization as it is. The millenniums are going to redefine nudism
Yeah.
in their own terms. And those of us who grew up in the club model, the club business model, I think there'll always be locations and clubs to go to or a cruise, but I think the number will be greatly reduced. And there'll have to be other things that the directs do online. There'll be a lot more online nudism, which means you be safe at home. You won't have to be nude in front of other people that you don't know, which is kind of the high idea of social nudism.
Right.
So I'm not going to be around long enough to see how it evolves, but I think in another 30 years, the whole nudist movement will be defined differently than how we see it.
Yeah.
And that strikes terror into a lot of the old timers. And I don't, I embrace it because it can't be stopped.
Yeah.
But they're doing it to themselves. I mean, we're getting into a succession discussion here,
Yeah.
but the owners are not planning for their own succession very well.
Yeah.
There's zoning issues. You got the whole homeless issue in California. They want to now build where they couldn't build before. They're changing the zoning laws. There'd be a lot more building on the cliffs above the beaches. And then on top of that, you got climate change and the seas are rising. So the beaches we have now may not exist in 50 years. We're going to have to move the nude beach anyway. So how does that conflict with the zoning laws? And as the clubs, as the owners age out, their children may not want to run the club.
Yeah.
Certainly not the way their parents did.
Mm-hmm.
The land is too valuable. Right now, you've got several clubs in California where you've got the land far more valuable than the money that's coming in from the nudist community. It's a lot easier just to sell the land, take the money, and run.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happened in Elysium. Elysium, the land got too profitable, or it was priced to the point where the girls just decided, the daughters of Ed Lang decided to sell it. Their dad had a 20-year zoning battle to get it approved. He died a couple of years later, and the girls turned around and sold it and left us all homeless. And they took the money and ran. And that's the same thing that happened at Deer Park. Same thing happened at Mystic Oaks. At lots of clubs in California. We're down to about half the clubs that were there 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think the number will continue to drop, and you'll have only mega clubs left.
Yeah.
Well, then what do the rest of the nudists do? Well, you got beaches, but the beaches are being squeezed in by the zoning and the sea change. So the whole definition of nudism over the next 30 years is going to be redefined. I think social media is going to be a big part of it, but I can't predict. I did my predicting. I wrote an article in Internet Magazine in 2003 called "The Graying of Nudism," where I predicted lots of stuff 20 years later. And unfortunately, I was a sage. I predicted everything that's going on.
Yeah, you could see it coming.
So people ask me, well, what's going on the next 20 years? I go, I don't know. The Generation Z will define itself.
Yeah.
But we define the club movement after World War II, and it's again in the 60s, differently than they had originally conceived it in 1930.
Right.
1930, they were isolated camping spots. That's why you call them nudist camps.
Yeah.
They were camping places. They were all into gymnastics, no smoking, no drinking, clean lifestyle, kind of really isolated from the public. And then after World War II, they had to redefine that. That's the birth of a lot of the clubs. And then in the 60s, in order to keep the members, they allowed alcohol and allowed smoking. They stopped with the calisthenics, and they started doing other things. The self-help movement came along in the 70s, and Elysium was a hit. That they had self-help workshops. The first nudist group therapy in the world happened at Elysium Institute. They invented that and things like that. Then you got into the 80s and the 90s, and it started to evolve where it became institutionalized. AANR had its day. The beaches came along, and now we're evolving yet again.
Yeah.
We can't hold on to the existing system. Life will not let us, no matter how much we try.
Yeah.
Linda understands that. I understand that. But I was too early. I couldn't get enough people to change early enough. Linda, I hope, is the first of many AANR presidents that can make that change.
Yeah.
Cindy Holbach is the chairman of the board now for the Nature Society.
Mhm.
So SCNAs have spawned both leaders, both from AANR and from the Nature Society,
Yeah.
have come out of our organization.
Good way to put it.
You can blame me for that. That's just my fault. But the two organizations who used to hate each other are now talking together. They're doing things. They are doing things together. I don't know if they'll ever be emerged back together again because they really have different focuses.
Yeah.
But they complement each other very well.
Yeah.
I recommend people join both organizations because they do two different things for nudism. And people should get involved with their local politics to be sure that local politicians don't take advantage of us and impose a penalty or a new voting law. Nudists are very vulnerable to politicians who like to use us as a whipping boy for their own ambition and their own future. That's what happened in Australia.
Yeah.
It was a great nude beach in outside of Sydney, where people go all the time. And a local city councilman, where the beach district was in his district, decided he wanted to run for mayor or something, and he used the nudist as the cornerstone of his campaign. How terrible this was! Kind of the Harold Hill version of a pool table in River City. That kind of speech, and he won, and the beach went away. And the nudists, they said, "What the hell happened? You know, we were fine, we were doing this," but yeah, a business politician stepped up, took it away. Because nudism in the United States is not legally allowed. There was a court case in 1991, Barnes versus Barnes versus Glenn Theater, which Justice Scalia wrote the opinion that nudism did not fall under the First Amendment freedom of speech protection. That was a big shock to nudists in 1991. So ever since then, we've had to go on the assumption that nudist is a privilege, not a right.
Wow.
Even though AANR talks about nudist rights and the clubs talk about nudist rights, it really isn't a right. We are there because the local politicians and the zoning laws allow us to be, which means we can never ignore the local politics, local politicians. In my case, at Bates Beach, I always made sure that a majority of the local city council supported us.
Yeah.
5 members on the board. I always made sure I had at least 3 people who thought we should be there so that they couldn't possibly raise a resolution to put us out of business.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with the county supervisors. I got 3 closeted members of the board of supervisors who accept us but will never say it out loud.
Yeah.
They just say, behave, don't cause an issue, and you're fine. As long as I have a 3-2 majority, I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
And you cannot ignore it. You have to get involved with the local elections that way. That's just the nature of nudism these days. Clubs need to do that too, because a club could be zoned out of business.
Yeah.
They don't think so. They think, well, we've been here 30 years. What could possibly happen? Well, the truth is something could possibly happen.
Yeah.
I say that all the time, and people don't appreciate. They think that I'm a worrywart, I'm a negative, this or that. But Cassandra told them not to bring the Trojan horse into Troy too, and look what happened.
Hey, there you go. And then they realized down the road, son of a gun, we should have listened to Gary, when he first said it. But that's kind of human history too, right? Not just with naturism, but anything. That guy's a fool. He's way out there in left field. And then you realize, oh my gosh, he was actually correct.
That's kind of where I am. At least I'm living long enough to get some people to apologize.
Yeah, there you go. I want to move to your books in the time we have left. But
Sure.
before we do, on AANR itself, because I was the CEO for a couple of different entities, and I was like the guy. I was hired by the board, though I wasn't elected. So that's a difference right there. But before I would take any job, I would tell the board, "You're bringing me in for what? What do you want me to do?" And they would list a number of things. We want this taken care of. We want this improved. We want whatever. Okay, I said, okay, I can do that. But once I start doing it, you got to stay out of my way, because the way it was written was the board would set the direction, and then I would be the guy to actually get it done. I said, if I'm halfway through and somebody gets ticked and comes to you and says, well, Frank's being a fool over here, you can't stop me, because then I'll just leave. If you're bringing me in to do it, I'll do it. And so I was able to get a lot of things done fairly quickly. Now, with AANR, when I was talking to Mitch London when he was president, and with Linda Weber too, they weren't getting things done as quickly as we thought they would. And I finally began to ask some questions this year, in fact, and I found out what you had already explained a few moments ago. It's a slow moving machine, and you have to get people aboard. You don't have a guy like Frank Stone coming in and say, by noon tomorrow, we're doing these 17 things, so get in line or get the heck out of here. You have to get support. You have to get people wanting to do it. You have to get people wanting to move, and maybe against their better judgment because they're club affiliated. And then, as you said, even if it gets passed through all that, it still is another year before it gets implemented. Do you see AANR ever changing that, or is that just it's the way we've always done it, therefore we're always going to?
My fear is it's the way it's always done it will be the on the tombstone. They have to radically change their bylaws. The bylaws that they have now are a result of Isley Boone, the name you may have heard. He was kind of the founding executive director for like 40 years, from the 1930s on into the early, well, I guess 1950s, mid-1950s.
Okay.
And he ruled it with an iron hand. The board always said, "Yeah, go ahead, do it, whatever you want to do."
That's the way to do
And
it.
he was a dictator. Now, that's the opposite side of what you're saying.
Right.
He could do whatever he wanted. The board just said, "Fine."
Yeah.
You know, if you're trying to do a project, that's what you want. Great, I can do whatever I want to do. But by the 1950s, the board started rumbling and saying, "Well, we want to go a different direction." And he said, "No, we're going to go this direction." And they started to plot against him. And in the early 50s, they actually had a coup at an at that point, the American Sunbathing Association meeting, and they voted to out him. And he took all the membership lists with him and founded a separate organization. He said, "To help with you guys."
Yeah.
But what they did to prevent any future dictator from happening is they built this parliamentary procedure, a process where you have to go through so many steps and long time to get anything implemented, so that no one person could dictate. Nowadays, the world is going so fast.
Yeah.
It's actually working against them.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they need to go back to an Isley Boone situation,
Right.
but they need to allow people to do these jobs and be able to turn on a dime.
Yeah.
Every corporation in the country, not just nudism, is going through the same problem.
Yeah.
Is the world is changing? We went through the whole computer revolution.
Yeah.
Companies couldn't change fast enough to get to keep up with where their customers were going, and a lot of companies failed, or they merged. They went out, they just were gone, and they always wondered what happened. Well, they were stuck in their structure. IBM almost went out of business of all places because they were trying to sell typewriters, and the world was going to Apple computers.
Yeah.
They came up with the IBM computer as a way to save their typewriter business, and didn't really think it was going to be a big deal. But that's a representative of what all the other corporations are doing. AANR is no different than that. They're losing membership. The Boy Scouts are losing membership. Churches are losing membership. It's indicative of everything. There's a book that came out about 10 years ago called Bowling Alone, which I would recommend to your readers. It's fairly thick. It's really dry. It's very statistically oriented. But this guy is a sociologist. He goes through how everything in America is stopped being clubs, stopped being things. Bowling alone is a symbol of people don't want to bowl alone. They want to bowl with their friends. But if they don't have enough friends, the bowling alley closes, and now they can't bowl at all. And so that's kind of the symbol of AANR, is that as your membership gets smaller and smaller and smaller, because your available income is going into social media and other things beside the nudism, there's not enough budget to run AANR.
Yeah.
You no longer can run the legislative lobbyists, the stuff you need to keep bad bills from being passed. You can't keep local zoning laws from being passed against you, and you hit a critical mass, and suddenly you implode because you can't afford to be what you are. The people who are in charge are seeing that on the horizon. They aren't there yet, but they're saying, "Oh my God, that could happen."
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that to AANR too. But the way you solve it is you got to totally rewrite the bylaws and change the structure and reinvent the organization
Yeah.
so that it's a lobbying organization as well as a club supporting organization. You're supporting nudism as an idea that people should try, not just you're not there just to support a particular group of clubs. You're there to support a bigger cause. You have to do that. You have to change the bylaws, and they're not there. They're not
Yeah.
willing to do that, or they don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
The existing executive director has been there for many years, and he's done a good job. I can't say Eric. I can't fault Eric at all, but he is old school. He is doing it the way he's always done it. I told Linda that they need to start thinking about succession planning in the AANR office. What happens if something happens to Eric? They fired the previous one, brought Eric back because they couldn't find anybody. So how do you find an executive director to run a national nudist organization? That's a tough nut.
Yeah.
And it's something that you should never forget. I always tell my board of directors, your first job is to find your successor. Your first job is to find somebody to train somebody to do your job if you can't or when you're gone. I felt that as president of SCNA, that my job for the last 5, 6 years was to find my successor.
Yeah.
And it took that many years to find Raw.
Sure.
And Linda said, I told Linda, you've got to find Eric's successor while he's still around, where Eric can train him and leave everybody applauding you before you get to the point where people say you have to leave. You don't want to be fired. You want to leave 1 year before you're fired,
Right.
basically. So
That's true. Too.
but she's got to find a way to replace that staff to do what she wants to do.
Yeah.
And she's obviously getting resistance from people who've been there a long time, like, well, this is what we've always done. That sense of we've always done it this way is on the tombstone. That will kill the organization.
That'll kill you. You got that right.
Yeah. TNS is doing that. TNS has moved on from Lee Baxendall's theme, from Nikki Hoffman's theme.
Yeah.
The new board of directors is trying to modernize and reinvent the organization.
Yeah.
AANR's behind on that. I don't know if the next 10 years are going to be where the key to where it goes. And maybe a whole new organization gets invented out of the carcass of AANR. I don't want people to not join AANR. They need all the capital they can find to do the job that's necessary to fight legislation, and to support nudism in all the ways that they do, and to support you as a blog. Blogging, I think, is one of the future things that they're going to be doing. They're going to have to make some changes. Linda is one of those with the foresight, but she needs allies. She needs more allies that she's got.
Yeah.
That's how I see AANR right now.
Well, very well said, and terrific words of wisdom from Gary Mussell. I think we would all do well to listen to Gary Mussell. And Gary, before we let you go, and you're one of the guests I'd like to have on more and more. And we could go on for hours today. I mean, literally, with pertinent information for all to hear. But we do need to head for the hills pretty soon. But before we do, you've written a few books, and you have more coming out. Can you give us a couple minutes on what's going on with your books?
Well, I've always wanted to be a writer, but I never had time. I kept saying yes to all the organizations. But now that I said no, I have the time to go back to my first love. I'm retired, so this is what I can do. I've had about 7 or 8 books on my mind to write for many years, and now I'm writing them.
Good.
I published the first of a series of thriller books set in high school, covering issues that are big today. The first book that's been published a year ago is called Tribes, subtopic shooter on campus. Tribes is how I see the world. We're all in our little silos. We're all talking to just our friends, just our people. And in high school, you've got the Mexican, the Latino group. Here, that don't sit with the white group, don't sit with the Asian group. And they talk to each other when they have to, but socially, they're different. So I'm describing that in the book as to how they handle these big events. My first book's about a shooting on campus. How do they get together to survive?
Mm-hmm.
I've got a shooter in a classroom, gets locked in with the students. The police don't know he's there, and the class has to talk him out of shooting him all. That's my first book. It's doing well. It's on Amazon. The follow-up book, which I'm writing now, is about drugs on campus, about a drug war on drug use. And the third book is going to be about sexual a sexual predator on campus. And they all read together. They got the same group of teachers, same group of students. I think they'll all do well as a group. The second group of books, which was involuntary, was caused by my mini stroke. I went in the hospital. Luckily, it was minor. I got through it. Obviously, I can talk well. I don't have a talking impediment.
Right.
Some people are sad about that. That's another story. But I wrote a book called How to Survive a Skilled Nursing Facility because I was in one 3 times last year for almost a whole year.
Oh.
It's something that most adults are going to go into. And I wrote it from the point of view of a patient, which all the books out there are not written that way.
Right.
It's gotten some good reviews. It's about to go up on Amazon. I'm adding some illustrations to it, which will make it better. The other book which did get published is a companion book. It's called How to Survive a Knee Replacement Surgery, which also many of us are going through.
Mm-hmm.
I just had 2 of them as part of my recovery.
Oh.
It's specific to that. It's on Amazon. It's doing really well. I suggest you buy these books before you have the knee replacement surgery, not after, because it'll tell you what you can look forward to and how your recovery should be done. The third book, which I will work on this next fall, the third book of that trilogy is How to Survive a Colonoscopy.
Mm-hmm.
And from a patient point of view, which is another journey all of us go through. Beyond that, I've got books about Elysium to write. I've got a business book to write. I've got 4 or 5 other books lined up. So basically, if the Green Reaper comes, and I have to tell him, I'm sorry, I'm booked for the next 10 years, and you come back after I finish writing.
That's
and
right.
That's basically that's my attitude. I have to finish this book before I go, or before I lose all my marbles. I'm 76 years old. I probably have 10 good years left, God willing.
Yeah.
I'm going to use them writing books, and I hope that they are popular enough that people will read them. But it's a dream come true. It's what I wanted to do. Thank you for giving me the time to plug it. Just look at my name on Amazon, and you'll see the list there. And over the next year or 2, that list will grow.
All right. And we have the link in the show notes. Gary Mussell, it's been great to talk to you. As I've mentioned at the beginning, I've heard of you for a long time. I've read some of the stuff that you've written, your articles, and it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Let's do this again when you get a moment. I know you're going to be busy writing, but when you want to take a break, let us know. We'll get you back on. And Gary Mussell, Mr. Naturism, Nudism USA, all world, go out there and have a great close for your day. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. The very terrific Gary Mussell, longtime president of the SCNA, also a past president for AANR West, and also an author. And on the next 2 Saturday shows, our special guest will be fairly new naturist James Grant. And before we go, let's bring back in our naturism correspondent, Lisa Monroe. Welcome back, Lisa.
I'm happy to be back. It seems like it's been so long since I was here.
It still seems funny, although natural, to call you our naturism correspondent.
I know.
You're not. We've talked about that before. You're basically the co-host, and I'm a co-host, and whatever. We'll just keep our titles and move along that way.
Works for me.
But really enjoyed talking to Gary Mussell. A lot of information, a lot of knowledge, a lot of wisdom. I really enjoy people who think and use judgment and discernment and wisdom, and Gary Mussell is certainly one of those, isn't he?
He certainly is. And, it's really good in any organization to have people with rational thought, because we all get out of control every now and then. And
Yeah.
I've been involved with a lot of organizations that did not have that capacity. So it's just really good to hear someone with the level of experience and the level headedness that he has and his true passion for naturism and what we need to do about it. So it was a very good interview.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that time with him. And then don't forget, you and I will be together on this coming Wednesday, which will be August 6th, doing a show, no guest, and no time limit, no minimum, no maximum. We just go for broke, and when we're done, we're done. And I think it's going to be great. We enjoyed our first show this past Wednesday. We'll do it again. Some interesting topics we have to discuss, and I'm looking forward to it. Sure hope that you are too. I
am. I think it's going to be fun, and I think it's, going to be a chance to really get into depth about some things that we all need to talk about.
Yeah, very well said. All right, Lisa Monroe, with that, we will head for the hills until Wednesday. Go out there and have a great clothes-free few days. We'll see you next time.
All righty, you too. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Well, you've been listening to Naked Nudists and Naturists, episode 111 today. We give you a brand new show every Saturday morning, 6 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time, and on most Wednesdays, 12 noon Eastern Time. Continue to join us. Check us out on our website, nakednudistandnaturist.com, Spotify, Google, Amazon/Audible, Apple Podcasts, and also on Twitter. You can write us anywhere, anytime, any place. And we thank you for being with us today. Plan to join us for every single one of our shows here and have your clothes off when you're listening. We have our clothes off when we're broadcasting, enjoying the naturist life.
We celebrate clothes-free living for all. Remember to enjoy being naked and join us again for Naked Nudists and Naturists.
We drop a brand new show every Saturday morning, so come back and join us. Have your clothes off when you do for Naked Nudists and Naturists. Have a great clothes-free day.